Fans, welcome to Sports Chat. A little bit to talk about this week. There's Cougar baseball has cranked up. The rest of the spring sports are on the way.
Yeah, the Cougars played Gibbs, opened the series, managed to get games in even with the terrible rainy weather we've been having. And unfortunately, they dropped that pair to Gibbs, I believe.
Of course, traveling to Gibbs, it's a exhausting drive.
It is one of the most awful places to have to go in the district. But that got the second game at home. But they got a long season in baseball, and I'm not sure how good Gibbs is. They often field pretty good teams, and I know they field great softball teams, but they usually field pretty good baseball teams too. And baseball is a sport where the best team doesn't always win. That's why even in the major league levels, like the worst team in the league will have times when they may sweep the best team in the league. It's just on a given day how well your hitters are hitting, or more importantly, especially how well your pitcher is pitching on a given day. And anybody can beat anybody in baseball, but it's a long season. District tournament will start April the 25th through May the 2nd. So
a lot of baseball to be played.
Good, month and a half of baseball, 45, 50 days, 25, 30 games to play. I think the next opponent, they're playing Union County right now in Clinton as we speak, and they'll play again Saturday, pardon me. This is Thursday, we're shooting this. They'll play again on Saturday against Clinton this time at Clinton. I guess Clinton's holding some kind of...
It's a play day type.
Mini tournament or some sort with a preseason where there's multiple teams at Clinton playing each other over a few days span. But after that, the Cougars will return home on March the 17th. Is their next home game against Powell. They play Powell on March the 16th, which is Monday at Powell, and then Powell comes right back up here to Campbell County. And the baseball Cougars will, the season is starting to get into the thick of things. You get pretty quickly into your district schedule. There'll be a few. They have Fulton, I think, in the non-district schedule, and of course, like I said, Union County they're playing tonight. I think they may play a game possibly against Claiborne County in the non-district, but they'll get right into the thick of the district games pretty quickly and get that cranked up.
Also, big news out of Campbell County. Kendra King signs to become a Tiger of Hiwassee College. Not straying too far from home. It's just in Madisonville, right outside Sweetwater.
It's good for Kendra. She gets to continue her basketball career, and that's what she wanted to do. Really happy for her. Go get to play college basketball. You get to do it for free.
She's majoring in dental hygiene.
A good degree then, one of the top degrees you can get. And I think Kendra will be fine. She'll be a good player for Hiwassee. She's a good player for Campbell.
Talk to her coach, her future coaches. Talk to her. There's apparently only 3 players coming back off last year's team, so she's going to have a good shot. And I know Kendra is a hard worker. She's going to have a good shot.
Well, with only 3 players coming back, that's 2 guaranteed openings. And Kendra's a guard, so I'm not sure who they have coming back guard-wise, but that's a good shot for a lot of playing time early on, and a lot of playing time, for the next couple of years as she pursues her basketball career through there. Other sports, as we mentioned, track has been...
their jamboree got canceled due to weather.
Yeah, it's rare to see a track meet canceled due to weather when it's not thunderstorming, but this one did. They'll get underway pretty soon. Softball as well as having weather issues.
Coach Wolfenbarger is supposed to send me a soccer schedule this weekend.
Not sure what I assume soccer probably plays through any kind of weather unless it's thunderstorming as well.
More or less.
I'm not 100% certain on that. It would seem like they would. It's played completely on grass rather than actually in active mud. But Cougars be starting up spring practice here in about a month and a half as well. Probably have their lift-a-thon. I would say in
a couple of weeks, yeah.
That's pretty much it on the Cougar front. They'll really be getting going, like I say, the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, next week we'll have a lot more Cougar sporting news.
The SEC tournament kicked off last night as of this shooting, and Auburn advanced and South Carolina advanced, and then earlier today Auburn also advanced again. Bruce Pearl makes me sad to see that he's coaching someone else. Talked about how it's the first time in 30 years Auburn's won 2 games in the tournament.
So he brought 4 suits to the tournament.
So bittersweet, I guess. Big thing. Tennessee really needs to win over Vanderbilt tonight. that will get her in the NIT. So that's just good for getting the young players more practice. Really, the NIT is pretty irrelevant as far as it goes whether you actually win the NIT, losing the first round of the NIT. But just maybe get a little extra practice will be about it out of it. It's not a make or break thing. It doesn't matter if you get there, if you lose. The only way the NIT ever matters is if you go there multiple years in a row like a Buzz Peterson did. And then it becomes an issue that you're only going to the NIT. This was just a reset year for UT basketball, and you just enjoy some of the big wins they've gotten. You know, be able to go on the road to LSU and get a win over a top 20 Arkansas team. You just have to enjoy what you got out of the season.
The big thing in a year like this, going to the NIT means you have an above 500 record.
Yeah, I mean they're currently 15 and 15. They need to win over Vanderbilt to get to 16 and 15, and then at 16 and 16, they may or may not get to go to the NIT. Mainly, you get to hopefully win the night. You can get 2 wins over Vanderbilt, and they're a bunch of jackals, so it's always good to get wins over Vanderbilt. But that's pretty much the UT situation, and they're of course their football spring practice. Bush Jones will be starting it up in about a month. UT goes on spring break next week, and then whenever it comes back from spring break, you'll see the pre-preparation start, and some of those new players will be out there on the field for the first time. A lot of those, I think they had 14 or so midterm enrollees, and guys that will be heavily expected, highly anticipated.
And plus, everybody will get to see our new offensive coordinator in action, for lack of a better term.
I just hope he's a good coach. You don't know. He's not coached the offense really in a long time. He was on Michigan's national championship team, not really a team known for its offense. He played musical quarterbacks with Tom Brady and another fellow. That's mainly the reason Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft choice rather than a top 3-round draft choice was the coaching of the board. So I'm worried about it. Bush Jones, he gave Bush Jones a break, 15 years ago, and maybe Bush Jones is giving him a break now. He's been out of actual coaching for a few years and been in more of an administrative role. He's an older fella. He's probably knocking on 60. Just have to see how it works out. And we're going to be really talented, and he's going to have plenty of tools to work with in the next few years. Main excitement for UT football, to me, we should really be good on the lines the next few years.
Oh, yeah.
Especially that defensive line. I mean, you have a fearsome defensive line, you can hang with anybody in the country because they can't run the ball on you, make them one-dimensional. And it's just, like I said, next year I'm looking at a 9-win kind of season, I think. Maybe a little bit more upside than that, maybe a little more downside than that, because UT will play a tough schedule. They always do.
So we're going to play Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma's coming to us this time.
We'll play Oklahoma again in the offseason, of course, play the brutal SEC slate.
Guaranteed game against Alabama.
The big thing to me is where we progress this year, and 2016 and 2017 should be years that you compete for the SEC title. And if you're competing for the SEC title, you're also competing for the national title. And that's what it's building to. And like I said, next year, 8-9 wins, a bowl game, coming off a bowl win, that would be a good step forward. Because these players, they're talented, but they're going to be sophomores and freshmen. And that's still, it's not that the other top SEC teams aren't talented too, because Alabama signed the number 1 class. We signed the number 4 or 5 class. Georgia signs top 5 classes. But it's set up pretty decently. Steve Spurrier's getting old. Mark Richt is Mark Richt. He leaves he will always leave you an opportunity to play against them a good game, and you'll have chances to beat Georgia because he's Mark Richt. He's, Philip Fulmer made over. Alabama's going to be great, but Alabama's in the West. That's not really going to affect terribly bad our shot at the SEC East. Florida's in a mess right now. I mean, they look like as bad as we did when we had Derek Dooley. We'll see if this new coach can get them going in the right direction, but he didn't do very well recruiting-wise, which is very rare for Florida, no matter who the coach is. So I'd say Vanderbilt's Vanderbilt, Kentucky's Kentucky.
Missouri's kind of a wild card.
Missouri, they've been good, but they lose a lot of seniors. I think they lose a senior quarterback, defensive lineman, a lot of their offensive line. So the East is pretty open. I could see Tennessee winning the East as an 8 or 9 win kind And Georgia's probably going to be the early favorite coming out of spring practice and into fall, but Georgia's often the favorite and rarely ever lives up to their billing.
Of course, another big thing in sports this week is NFL free agency.
Big moves out there. I mean, top flight stars going to other teams. Philadelphia, it's the weirdest carousel ever up there. They cut LaShawn McCoy, or traded LaShawn McCoy to save money on the cap space. I think he made $9 million a year, but his trade's going to cost him $3 or $4 million in cap because the guy they replaced him with only making like $1 million a year and had 2 blown out knees and already made some young career. It's a strange trade at first, but they ended up signing DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews today, which DeMarco's is $8.5 million a year, and I want to say Ryan Matthews is going to be $4 million a year or something along those lines. So they got rid of McCoy for $9 million a year and put $12.5 million in running backs. They don't have a quarterback really to speak of right now. They're thinking about probably trading for Nick Foles, who I thought was a pretty good quarterback.
I thought Foles had a good year.
Trading him for Sam Bradford, who is the walking knee injury for the Rams. He's missed every season. He ends up tearing his ACL at some point and misses the entire season. He got a lot of hype on Elkhorn, never really played up to his hype. He's injured constantly. We'll see how that works out. Hopefully badly. I'm not
The Colts seem to be trying to position themselves to have a chance against New England. Because, I mean, that's really what the Colts do.
The Colts are filling up veteran, players that maybe have a year left in them, maybe 2 years left in them. And that's what you do when you're trying to win a Super Bowl now. You go out and sign veteran free agents that are going to help your team be better. I mean, you see New England do it all the time. New England adds a Randy Moss. New England adds Darrelle Revis, who they lost back to the Jets. But that's what NFL teams do. If they think they're close to winning the Super Bowl, you'll see them sign a few veterans and try their best to just get that little extra edge they need to get over the top. As we know, the Colts lost at New England in the playoffs last year. Got blown out, actually. They got gronked all over. But I guess they think these guys are going to help them just tighten that gap up just enough. Andrew Luck, pretty much in the prime of his career. He's going to put up big numbers. He's a little mistake prone. People tend to overlook it because he does put up big numbers, but he turns the ball over quite a bit.
Seattle also made a shot at bolstering their offense.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well that'll work out for them, but I like Jimmy Graham. He's a great player. He should be happy in Seattle rather than he was disgruntled last year in New Orleans. He's a dynamic, almost unstoppable player when he wants to play. Seattle gave up their starting Pro Bowl center, though. And you give up your center, who's that good for somebody. I mean, most people don't really mess with their offensive line very often. They get one in sync. And that's why Dallas is willing to let DeMarco Murray go. They set a cap that they could pay him at because, frankly, they have some cap issues too. Your offensive line is going to drive your entire offense. And that's a risky move by Seattle. They had a dynamic playmaker, but you lose that center. Who knows how he and Russell Wilson and the new center is going to make it.
And one more big move, which I know did not sit well with their producer Chris Burton. Brandon Marshall's a New York Jet.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Marshall, he talks a little bit in the locker room, but he wants to win really badly. Is the way I've always seen it. And he gets upset when they don't play as well as he thinks they should, and he wants to win. But they apparently, the new coach, John Fox, and the new GM decided he was a little too mouthy, so they traded him off. They got, a linebacker for him. I can't remember exactly who it was. But Chicago looks like they're trying to bolster their defense. They made some free agent signings on the defense. The big news to me is they decided to keep Jay Cutler. A lot of people speculated that once they traded Marshall, because Jay Cutler's also supposed to be divisive in the locker room and not really much of a leader. From a lot of reports you hear that he causes a lot of distractions, doesn't really lead like a quarterback should.
Which is what you expect out of a guy from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vanderbilt, terrible people, as we mentioned earlier. But the big thing about Cutler as a coach, a lot of coaches have coached Cutler and pretty much have ended up in the same spot. That's on the unemployment line. And whether that's their coach's fault, Cutler's fault, how much responsibility that's to be determined, I guess, still. I mean, I mean, the guy's had 5 offensive coordinators in the last 6 years, I think. And people can say, well, you got no continuity, but the guys keep getting fired at coaching. He's had 3 or 4 head coaches over that short span of time that generally all get fired. Turns the ball over a lot. And he led the NFL in turnovers this past year. So maybe the Bears are going to approach it, just play defense, stick the ball in Forte's gut, and hope he can run it 375 times next year. But he gets a lot of touches. So once you see running backs putting up over 300 touches, unless you're Marshawn Lynch, you got to look at maybe they'll take a step back, which is another reason I'm not terribly upset about DeMarco Murray. It was a contract year last year. He had the best offensive line in football. He touched the ball 450 times. And that's just a lot of mileage put on a running back in a year. And they rarely ever bounce back and have a good year the next year, unless you're Marshawn Lynch.
Fans, I do believe that will about do it for this week's Sports Chat. We'll see you next week with a lot of Cougar spring sports action.